loss aversion. Psychological tendencies, or biases, often lead good people to act unethically. For example, our tendency to prefer avoiding losses to gaining rewards describes what ethicists call loss aversion. As Hall of Fame NBA player Jerry West said, "The pain of losing is so much stronger than the joy of winning."
In high school, went to the regional championship. We won one year, and it felt great. But the year before, we lost. And I think I remember the loss more than I remember the win.
And the research backs that up. Scientific studies show that we hate losses about twice as much as we enjoy gains.
It just hurts a lot because those moments replay in your mind. It comes up at unexpected moments. When you're lying in bed at night, it can kind of haunt you a little bit.
You put in all this effort and then you lose. It's kind of like the other team's taking a part of you that you think you should have earned. So you can go through the entire season with that part of you missing. And then if you win, it's like, that was mine anyway.
Loss aversion is related to prospect theory, developed by Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Prospect theory describes how people tend to take much greater risks to avoid losing things compared to the risks they would have taken to gain those things in the first place. Sometimes, to avoid a loss, we consciously decide to lie. We cover up what might be a simple accidental mistake because we don't wish to suffer the consequences of making that mistake.
You know, something's happened, we broke something, and we just were trying to cover it up and cover it up. And the more we kept lying, the more we just dug ourselves this deeper hole, and the truth eventually comes out.
It's very difficult oftentimes to, tell the truth when you know the outcome.
So in the back of your brain, you're like, maybe you don't even remember, but if you do, you're like, yeah, I did that for a good reason, so it was completely justified.
Research shows that companies often overstate future business earnings, unintentionally. Then, when companies miss those numbers, to avoid admitting an embarrassing error, they choose to lie. They begin to intentionally mislead investors to avoid a hit to their reputation and their stock price. The company's unintentional mistake evolves into intentional fraud. Of course, loss aversion shows up in the world of sports, too. For example, college basketball head coach Dave Bliss had a big problem. One of his players had murdered one of his teammates, and lots of cash was found at the dead player's apartment. Coach Bliss had paid cash to the murdered player to encourage him to come and play at his university. This was illegal. To cover up the illegal deal, Bliss lied. He told authorities that the dead player had cash because he was a drug dealer. Would Coach Bliss have told such a despicable lie about the murdered player to get his coaching job in the first place? Probably not. But in order to avoid losing his coaching job, Bliss did exactly that.
I think competitive environments definitely increase the probability of making unethical decisions because in a competitive environment, everyone wants to be at the top.
I've had experiences in my athletic career that I've, lost at a national track and field meet. So I was ranked number 2 and I finished last. It was definitely hard to just sit there and walk away and not feel like I should have been on that podium or something like that. The consequences maybe of not winning or of not performing well, the stakes are much higher. It involves your own scholarship and whether or not you come back next year and those kind of things,
It's easy to want to resort to, doing the wrong thing or, having that mentality of, oh, by any means possible, we need to win.
So, to be the kind of person we want to be, we need to monitor our own motivations and actions, constantly and consistently. We may also need to muster the courage to admit to our most painful mistakes. Because when we don't own our mistakes, the pressure of loss aversion can lead us to commit much worse moral errors. The cover-up is often truly worse than the crime.
We often get some losses, we often get some wins. But then again, our wins and losses do not define who we are as a person.
Owning up to your mistakes doesn't mean that you're a failure or that there's something wrong with you or that you're bad. It actually means that, you're mature and you're wise and you're trying to be a better person.
Hey, we failed today. We didn't fail, but we learned from that experience and we're going to use that and build on it.
The lesson comes from, taking the loss and learning from it and continuing on and realizing that you can grow from that.
Just telling the truth from the get-go is always the best option.